Cult Cinema Podcast.
It's over! Time to get shit-faced!
Are you having a religious experience? Or did you pee your pants?
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 17 of the Cult Cinema Podcast. I am Gage.
I'm Ashley.
And today we are discussing and somewhat reviewing Silent Night, Deadly Night, released
Indeed.
in 1984 by Charles Sellier? Sellier?
Sure.
Sure.
Sounds right.
What did you think of this movie?
Well, this was a request, so I will shout out that person.
Yes.
It's actually my cousin, Nick Wetmore. What's up, man? Thank you. I thought it was 80s.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same reaction that I have to it.
Yeah, it's 80s.
I thought it was fine for a kind of weird early to mid 80s horror film. It seemed a lot more put together compared to some of the older horror movies that we've watched. So,
Yeah.
The story is there's a lot of nudity in this movie.
Oh, is there ever?
Yeah. I actually have a funny story about that. So I watched the movie earlier today, and I was in a part where one of the multiple sex scenes was occurring, and I get a knock at my door. So I paused the movie, not realizing that I had paused it on a sex scene, so that I opened the door, and it's the gas company. They're just like inspecting for a leak because one of my neighbors had reported smelling something weird. So they come in, and it's not until like right as the guy is about to leave that I realized that there is just like two people having sex on my television.
Titties everywhere.
And I'm working on another project, so I have a lot of camera gear set up in my apartment. So they're probably coming in thinking, "What the fuck
You shoot
goes on?"
porn.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It was a really uncomfortable experience because there was like one guy that was in the house like going around doing the scans or whatever, and then there was one guy that was out on my porch because my door was open the whole time, so he could definitely also see what was going on. And the fact that my place is just kind of gross right now, just because I'm a single 20-year-old guy who lives by himself in his own apartment, my place just naturally is a mess. So yeah. That was fun.
That's amazing. That's like the best story I've ever heard.
That'll be a highlight to go on the Instagram.
Indeed.
But yeah, in terms of the film, getting past all of what seems to be an unnecessary amount of nudity, the kills are pretty creative. The score is all right. It's got real good horror vibes while mixing in a lot of like old Christmas music into it, so that's pretty cool. This is so the guy who plays Billy, what was his name? Robert Brian Wilson.
Robert, yeah.
This was his first movie officially, and it shows.
Indeed.
Yeah. But overall, I thought it was a fun watch. Yeah. That's all I have to say for it, and it's very 80s. And
I think for a slasher film that's focusing on a killer Santa,
I think, yeah.
that is interesting. It's an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that caused a lot of controversy around this film when it first released.
That's like majority of my fun facts.
Yeah, that's the main takeaway from, I guess, the making of and the behind the scenes of this movie is just the controversy that it faced for having a beloved character, a household name, Santa Claus, be turned into a
serial killer.
A serial killer.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I have my "Let Me Seduce You with My Serial Killer Knowledge" t-shirt on today.
Nice.
I thought that was appropriate.
Absolutely. We could probably talk about this further at one point, but there is a sequel to this movie. This is part 1 that we watched. Have you seen part 2?
No, I've never seen. I didn't see this one. I actually saw the movie I was thinking of is a sort of remake of this.
Yeah,
it came out in 2012.
That's just called Silent Night.
Exactly. And in my brain, I was like, obviously that's not what he requested. He grew up in the 80s, so I'm sure he watched this as a kid. But in my brain when I first Googled it, I was like, oh, I've seen that. And then I like went one down. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen any of the sequels.
I know that there's like 5 of these movies.
5.
I know that 2 has 3 through 5. Most people probably aren't. I mean, I wasn't really aware of the series at all before we decided to watch it. But I remember seeing like part 2. I know the Garbage Day meme. That is like a quote from the second movie. I didn't know what it was actually from. But it was funny because like I knew the meme and then I saw that it was a clip from the second movie. And I was like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, 3 through 5 I know nothing about and probably won't care to watch. But
I'll pass.
Yeah.
I'll pass. Thank you.
All right, so if you're ready, I suppose we can get started with that scene by scene.
All right. So, yes, Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. We open with a classic 80s graphic circling some credits made clearly in PowerPoint, early days of PowerPoint. It's almost like the slide went up.
Yeah.
But it's also got a creepy-ass child singing along at first, which is definitely eerie.
We love a child singing creepy horror music. We love it.
Indeed. We love it. This is definitely classified as a slasher, so my expectations were pretty high for the gore and everything else, so I was getting excited. The credits for this movie are then played amongst the worst off-tuned harpsichord / piano ever, and it's super off-putting. Great start. Credits are decently long, though, which I hated.
Yeah. And they don't really do anything creative with, like, the beginning credits or anything like that. It's just white text on a black screen.
Again, PowerPoint slides, just forking through those bad boys. We then see a car driving along the road through some mountains. I couldn't tell if the mountains were, like, green screened or if they were real.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was projection. Well, I mean, if they're driving, I would assume they'd have to do it. Because, like, the car's moving.
I don't know.
The car's driving. I don't know. I didn't get that too far into the making of. There's really not, like, other than, like, interviews with Robert Brian Wilson, and there's not really much in terms of, like, video behind the scenes type stuff for this, at least from what I can tell.
Why would there be?
Right.
So some text comes along the screen that it's Christmas Eve, 1971. We kind of pan into the car, and the family that's in it is riding along the road, down the road. Dad, mom, baby, and small child. And the woman holding the baby's in the front seat because 80s and car seats weren't that important. He ends up in the car seat, but she's definitely holding him while driving. The little boy from the back seat asks how much longer they're going to be, so they've clearly been driving for a good amount of time. The mom says we're almost to Grandpa's, so they're heading to see his grandpa. He also asks what time Santa's coming because he's worried that they won't get home in time, and she basically is like, well, when everyone goes to sleep. And, there's super odd, so the score I'll talk about in fun facts because I found the info about the score. But all the Christmas music, for the most part, that plays in this movie is not standard Christmas songs. They're religious sounding, and they're weird, and I've never heard them before.
I've heard,
we'll get into that later.
Yeah, in some of the songs, I feel like I can hear, like, some melody that kind of references certain Christmas or religious songs, but that was...
Right.
Yeah.
I assumed it was in... Most of the Christmas songs are not in the public domain, so they couldn't use them because they didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
But we'll find out later why that was. So, again, weird Christmas music on the radio playing. We then see the family pull up to the Utah Mental Health Facility. So that's where Grandpa is, in a mental home. Nice. But this poor guy is catatonic and doesn't speak or say anything. Even when little Billy says hi and, like, touches him, kind of, he doesn't move. Also, he asks why we're here if he can't even move and talk, and that's a good question, kid. I'm not sure why your parents would be visiting him. I guess it's nice because it's Christmas Eve.
Right.
But...
And they probably weren't expecting his condition, because they mentioned, like, his condition's gotten worse. They probably
Touche.
It wasn't as bad last time they saw him. I don't know. Thinking
Yeah.
too much into it.
No, you're probably right. You're being a nice person. I was just like, yeah, why'd we come? He doesn't even talk. But the parents do leave Billy alone. Like you said, they're going to go talk to the doctor about his condition and how it's advancing. And at this point, the grandpa looks over at the kid once everyone's left them alone. And he starts talking and kind of grabs him and tells him that Christmas Eve is the scariest night of the year. Because apparently Grandpa knows something we don't, that Santa's evil. And he just terrifies this poor fucking child. And the parents are like, okay, well, we're out. Let's go. And they didn't even visit for more than like 5 seconds.
Yeah, that was another thing, too. It was like, well, guess he's fucked. All right, Billy, let's head home.
Let's get out of here. So we're then back in the car, and Billy's kind of repeating the stuff that he said about evil Santa. And now he's kind of scared of Santa. And the mom is like, well, he's just a silly old fool. Don't pay any attention to him. And we cut quickly to a gas station where an actual dude dressed as Santa starts robbing this convenience store. And he straight up kills this clerk without hesitation. 3 shots, 1 to the head. That guy's dead. So we cut back to Billy and his parents driving home, still in the car. Again, more old-ass Christmas music. And now the baby's in the car seat.
Nice.
Mainly because I think the mom was tired. Yeah. So stick that sucker back there.
Comfort first, safety second.
Exactly. They then kind of pull around a bend. Well, the mom at first says, I see something in the road, but then we pan out to the road and don't see anything. You can tell that it was far enough away at the time that she clearly saw someone in the road, but we pull up and we see that Santa that robbed a gas station in the middle of the road. They pull up and ask if he needs help. Clearly a bad decision. Because, yep, Santa pulls out his gun and tries to shoot them. But this dumbass turns the car in reverse and then immediately wrecks into the ditch. He had so much road.
Well, I think he wrecks into the ditch because he gets shot by Santa. So he probably pulls it into reverse, gets shot, and then
jerks it back. Yeah, touche. I didn't even see the gunshot hit the dad until the dad comes rolling out of the car. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay. So dad's dead. They wreck the car. Billy jumps out and kind of runs away and hides. And we're led to believe this is supposed to be Utah in the winter. It would be fucking freezing cold. That kid would never survive.
But, like, he gets out of the car and starts running like this is, like, a train scenario that his parents have put him through. Like, he just knows.
Definitely.
Like, he's not in shock at all the fact that the car just crashed and that someone just pulled a gun on him. Like, he just knows exactly to just run and hide.
Yeah. Right. Duck and cover.
Yeah. Also, the whole thing, this makes the whole scene with the grandpa, because we don't see the grandfather for the rest of this movie. The whole scene with the grandfather just kind of makes this whole scene here just kind of seem on the nose. You know what I mean? Kind of.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it just seems like kind of holding your hand for the setup of everything.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure. So the baby's crying in the back seat. Billy jumps out. He's hiding. The dad's dead already, as far as we can tell. But Santa pulls out the mom, and again, we're back to our favorite thing ever.
I wouldn't say that that's what it is. It's our favorite thing ever, but yeah, we can't escape
our favorite thing ever to bash and discuss in movies, because
Yeah.
why have it in here? You could have just killed her. You didn't have to pull her top off. Didn't have to do any of that. Could have just slit her throat.
I mean, it is a horror film, and rape is a pretty scary thing.
I guess that's why it's included. But either way.
I don't know. I feel like we're going to get canceled for all the times that we talk about rape on this show. Good Lord. Well, at least we're doing Die Hard next time, and there's none in that. So
true. But also, just shining light to the fact, directors, you don't need to put rape in your movie to make it scary. Just don't need to have it. So Santa kills the mom, slits her throat. The gore in this movie is pretty legit.
Yeah.
For the 80s. I wasn't hating it.
I would say. I mean, they didn't show the mom's throat getting cut. They just
No. But in other scenes, well, I'll talk about it when I get there, but
it's not bad for a low budget 80s horror film.
No. Santa's looking around for Billy though, but he's clearly hiding pretty well. And so then you just kind of see the forest pan out, hear the baby still crying, and that's that. We then cut to Christmas Eve. I think it said 1974? Question mark?
3 years later.
3 years later. And we're at St. Mary's Home for Orphan Children, because that's totes a thing. And, of course, it's run by nuns. And the nun is telling Billy to hang a picture. He's, like, in a classroom setting. And she says, hang your picture on the board, Billy. And, of course, it's of the murder scene, because it's New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And this nun sends him to Mother Superior. And that woman, who is god-awful, basically sends him to his room and tells him, you don't come out until I come get you. There's another nun in the room, though, when they're talking to Billy, when Mother Superior is talking to him. And we learn her name is Sister Margaret. And she's actually trying to, like, speak up for the fact that this kid is fucked up.
Yeah,
he needs
because the whole thing is the Mother Superior is like, oh, he probably doesn't remember that whole thing from 3 years ago. He was like 5 or whatever. But it's like, shit, I remember stuff when I was 5, and it clearly, like, he probably wouldn't be, making these drawings had he not have some recollection of this night.
Well, and it's a very traumatic event. Of course you would remember it.
Post-traumatic stress isn't a thing. Just get
not
over
then.
yourself. Just think about something happy.
Right. You'll be fine,
yeah,
kid. Mother Superior says she will basically just personally take charge of him and give him the help he needs, which of course won't be the help that we come to know that he'll probably need. We then see Billy sent in from outside. So somehow he got outside. His little brother is also out there. So at least they're together, I guess. I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
Also, I'm glad Santa didn't kill the baby.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where my head went first.
That was another thing. Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot, and I was like, oh, my God, are we about to watch the baby die, too? Because my whole...
Please don't.
Yeah, because my whole thing was like, why didn't little Billy, take his little brother with him? It was like, well, he's 5 years old. I'm pretty sure his instincts were just like, I need to get the fuck out of here.
Right, but then I'm thinking in my head, so Billy hides,
Mm-hmm.
the baby is alive,
Mm-hmm.
that Santa didn't steal the car.
No.
Or maybe he did steal the car and put the kid in his car and took off. I don't know.
I don't know.
Either way, thank God we didn't have to see baby murder, along with all the other shit we got to witness here.
Good God.
Right. So Billy's outside playing around in the snow. The nun sends him inside. He hears at, I guess, the end of this hallway, two people clearly getting it on.
Oh, yeah.
So he kind of creeps up to this door and peeks in the keyhole, and we see, I don't know if it's a nun and a guy or just random people.
I would think, because, the Mother Superior ends up finding them and then giving them the belt, which, is that, did the sisters, do they still get whipped or anything? Because I would think, I know that there are, teenagers that are still in this orphanage, because it's, as we see, as Billy grows up later on in the next scenes, he was still getting assistance from the sister, was it Sister Margaret? What was the nice, yeah, he was still, with the orphanage, so... Yeah, they don't really explain. I would assume that they're probably teenagers, but they do look kind of old. But maybe that's because you can't.
Every teenager looks old in this movie.
Because you can't really have two minors having sex in a movie. That's just kind of frowned upon,
Right. Well, okay. Let's just say they're outside people.
Yeah.
I do know that nuns definitely did whip people. They would belt, ruler. Right. That was a thing, for sure.
But I guess the question is, would they do that to their own if one of them was... Because that's what Mother Superior does to them when she catches them. So
I would say yes, I'm sure she would. Yeah. It's a penance also in the Bible to whip yourself. So it's probably where she's going with that. But as he's peeking in the hole and watching these people naked and obviously doing stuff... The nun kind of comes up from behind him, Mother Superior, and I don't know if she heard it too or how that... I've totally missed that scene. The next thing is she opens the door, and Billy's standing right there, and she's screaming at these people that they're naughty and disgusting, and then, starts to beat them, and then shuts the door behind her. She then tells Billy that it was wrong of him to sneak out of his room, but what he just saw there was naughty. we need to mention the naughty thing as much as possible because it's definitely a theme in this movie.
Yeah. There's no doing anything bad. It's being naughty.
Right.
And I feel uncomfortable every time it's said.
Me too. Not good. Not a good word. We then cut to her, shocker, beating Billy. So we then see this poor kid have a nightmare, and she assumes tying him to his bed's going to help for that. But, okay. The next day is Christmas, so all the kids get to pick out a present. She then tells the other nun, Sister Margaret, that her methods worked, so he should be fine now. And as soon as she makes him get on Santa's lap, you know, all the problems will be resolved and it'll be fine. But of course, as soon as he does, he flips the fuck out and goes and hides in his room because that's not at all how you deal with trauma.
He, like, knocked Santa the fuck out, too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot to write that down.
Yeah. It's like he sits on his lap and then he just freaking wails on him. Like, this is an 8-year-old kid just...
Yeah, he goes, like, flying
Mike
off the chair.
Mike Tyson punch straight to Santa's face, and it like knocks him like 2 feet off the chair.
Yeah, for sure. That's true. I forgot about that. little too far, stunt man.
Yeah.
A little too far. Pull it back.
Well, we see like in the next scenes where like we see Billy as an 18-year-old and he's just fucking jacked too. So
He's huge. Yeah. And that's where we are now. We cut 2 years later because Billy is now a full-grown man and huge. And the one nun, Sister Margaret, is trying to help him get a job at a toy store with Mr. Sims. He is played by Britt Leach, and he's been in a ton of stuff, especially in the 80s. He's always like that asshole guy in the movie.
yeah, he's probably the
I think
only.
it's because of his face.
He's probably the only person that I recognized out of this movie that I had seen in anything else.
Me too. That's it. Just him. So they do hire Billy though, and he's like a stock boy. So we have a fun 80s montage of him working and lifting boxes and, you know, acclimating to society, I guess, is the point. Mr. Sims then pulls out a Merry Christmas banner, and of course, when Billy sees the Santa on the end of it, his smile quickly goes away and he frowns, and he clearly, you know, is still disturbed by the Santa image even. We also see that he clearly has a crush on, I don't know if she's the boss's daughter or just another woman that works there.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure. At first,
I
it
think
didn't
we're
tell
just
you.
led to believe that it's someone else who works there.
Fair enough. Her name's Tammy. Then some other dude who also works there. I don't know if he's like the manager of the stockroom or like what he is, but he's an asshole the whole time to this poor guy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad until a few scenes later.
We all have had that one boss.
Right. But he's basically bitching at Billy, like, you know, because I'm sure since it's getting close to Christmas, Billy's, you know, freaking out and doesn't want to deal with the Christmas stuff and the lights and whatever. And this guy's like, well, you're not getting any work done and it's affecting me. So, you know, Billy does tell him to leave him alone at the end of the conversation, but you can tell that Billy's like very reserved and at first.
Can you imagine how different this movie would be had he just gotten a different job? Where they like in a non-retail environment where you know that they're going to be decorating for the Christmas season.
All right,
like if
like a gas station or something.
Like if he had just been a gas station attendant, it would have been a completely different movie.
It would.
I want to see that
Until he
cut.
saw Santa.
I want to see that cut, Mr.
Yeah.
Whoever directed this movie, Charles Sellier.
We then see Santa in a sled in the store, so naturally it fucks with Billy because, you know, undealt with trauma. Rears its ugly head again. We then see kind of a dream sequence with Billy and Tammy. I put a note in here. At least I think that's what her name is. I heard it once.
I think there was an A. There was Tam or Pam.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Tammy.
Okay. Sure.
Don't come for me. I really didn't pay attention. But they're doing stuff in his dream, and then Santa comes along.
We get a nice shot of Robert Brian Wilson's hairy asshole. That's always great.
I must have looked out for that. All I remember is boobs.
Yeah.
Most of this movie. Just boobs everywhere. But Santa comes out of nowhere and stabs him. And I'll mention this now. Every time you see a stab, they pull the skin, which you would not do. You wouldn't like stab somebody and then go like this up and down or side to side. That doesn't make any sense. And it's very hard to do. You would just stab them and keep stabbing them.
Right.
Anyway, anytime this happens in this movie, the blood that is used, that pours out of whatever wound has just created, is chef's kiss. I haven't seen good blood like that in an 80s film.
Yeah, it's pretty, because usually it's always like really, it's a lot brighter than it should be.
It's too red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, whatever concoction they came up with did an amazing job. This jolts him out of sleep, though, and he huddles in the corner just like he did when he was a kid. So, again, trauma.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one thing that the film really does well, is it really helps you, like, really feel bad for this character. And just, like...
You do, yeah.
Just having to relive that trauma in your head, like, especially, like, around the holidays, just being triggered by something as an image of something. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it can be... of course, it's dramatized, but, like, I think it does give a solid, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I feel like it represents post-traumatic stress well to a certain degree. Granted, I don't have post-traumatic stress, so I can only say so much about it. But, like,
right.
It does make you feel for the character and understand that they've been through some shit, and it's a lot of untreated trauma that they're going through.
Yeah. Agreed. I think it portrays it pretty well. I think that's kind of the point, though, because in a story like this, even though Billy's killing all these people, you're building this person up to what you feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
So, of course, when he starts murdering everybody, you're not rooting for him to keep going, but at the same time, you're not, like, against him because you're like, I understand.
Yeah, it's like,
he's fucked up.
It's like, you shouldn't do that, Billy, but, I get why you're doing it.
Right. So the next day comes along, and we see the store owner and another woman who works there. I did not catch her name either. And she basically comes up to Mr. Sims and says, well, unfortunately, Santa's out with a broken ankle, and the douchebag in the back's giving Billy a hard time again. So Mr. Sims comes up and asks Billy to be Santa. No! How could no one, like, prepare this man for this? Like, why didn't the nun tell this guy, hey, by the way...
Yeah, because, like, we see later that, like, he knows that the kid's from the orphanage, and so you would think it's something as, like, specific and as traumatic as this kid has gone through, and, like, incidences that he's had as a child growing up, that you would probably mention something like that to the future employer.
Right, especially because he refers to it... No, he doesn't say anything about where the kid came from. So, yeah, there must be some sort of working relationship between maybe the orphanage as a whole to, like, get these kids out and working when they're 18 and give them some sort of life skill. So, just saying. Should have warned that guy.
Yeah. Also, this is just a message to anybody out there that has, like, a boss that's making you uncomfortable. Hey, it's okay to, like, say, hey, I don't feel uncomfortable doing that, which is what Billy should have done. And again, that would have also made this a completely different movie.
Yeah, he could have just been like, I'm sorry, I can't wear that costume. Make douchebag over here do it.
Right.
End of story. Scene.
End of movie. Roll credits.
Right, roll credits. Billy looks so dead in the eyes, though, when we kind of pan over to his face, because he's not obviously excited about doing this. It's so creepy. Like, this actor, granted... Again, like we talked about, it is his first movie, but in some of his facial expressions and stuff, I was like, ooh,
the facial expressions are pretty good. It's just like when you hear it, like real dialogue scenes,
sure,
is the main thing. But yeah, for his first real feature film, Robert Wilson coming from no real theatrical background whatsoever,
right?
It's not. I've seen worse from more trained actors. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Agreed. And again, 80s.
Yeah.
No one cares. We then We then see Billy in the Santa suit, a little girl sitting on his lap, and he's like quietly telling her to stop squirming and kicking.
Mm-hmm.
And he whispers to her that Santa doesn't bring toys to naughty kids or he'll have to punish you. And she kind of like, stops squirming and then finally just runs to the mom.
Mm-hmm.
But the parents and stuff can't hear him, so they think he's doing a good job because he's calmed down in his lap. It's like...
Tip to all you mall Santas out there. Here's what you should do to calm down a freaking out kid.
Right. Tell them they're god-awful.
Yeah.
Douchebag guy in the stockroom then gets a phone call, and it's from the nun who's checking in on him. And he tells her that Billy's not in the stockroom anymore. He's now up front as Santa. And she looks straight terrified. Which, again, why wouldn't you go there now and, like, check on him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As the nun who does know his past trauma.
Well,
Anyway.
we see it later on that she, I think it's later that evening that she actually comes around, because we see in a couple, wide shots of it seems like every location in this film is, a solid 30 miles away from each other, because, because you see the drive from, their... in the first scene where Billy as a kid and the family taking the long haul to see Grandpa at this mental facility, and we see when the nun and the police officer later in the movie are driving back to the orphanage, they're driving through the middle of nowhere through the mountains to get back there. So
Yeah, I guess it could be a long way away.
Yeah.
Touche. Maybe she just couldn't get there. As soon as she hung up the phone, she left, but it takes 3 or 4 hours or whatever the fuck. So Mr. Sims then closes the store for the night and breaks out the booze.
Ooh.
They're having a little holiday party at work. Billy's still in the Santa suit, though. And they get him to drink. Obviously his first time, judging by his face.
Is this during a time when it was 18? When did they change it from 18 to 21 federally?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. You look it up.
I think it was... This is the part where we cut it in the edit and it's all right, we'll be right back, guys.
Yeah. 1984.
Oh. So, okay. So maybe this was... If it released in 84, so at the time of filming...
You could still be 18, maybe. Yeah. So
we're going to say this was legal.
Sure. It's legal. Even if it wasn't. Again, 80s.
Yeah.
No one gives a fuck.
There may be a lot of murder, but at least everybody is drinking over the legal age. So that's the important thing here.
Super important. We then see douchebag guy and Tammy go off together. And he at first looks sad, but then he kind of is curious and starts following them. And he watches them make out for a little bit, and then they go back behind into the stockroom. And Mr. Sims comes up to him and says Billy says he's thinking about his parents, which makes him sad. And Mr. Sims says, well, that's a good thing to think about your parents. And he's like, no, they're dead. And he's like, oh, yeah, God, that's right. So he did know something. Yeah. He at least knew his parents weren't around. Mm. He then jokes about what Santa does on Christmas Eve. So you better sober up, Billy, because you got to get started. So he drunk walks away. Billy starts down the corridor to get into the stockroom. And she's talking to the douchebag guy. I never wrote his name down, so apologies. But she's basically asking him where her present is, and he said, oh, I've been wanting to give you this all year. It's in the back. Winky wink. Come on back here. So Billy then enters the stockroom and is standing there. And he then... I don't know if he hears Tammy first before he opens the door, or he opens the door and then hears Tammy. But she's kind of telling douchebag guy to stop touching her and getting on her. And then he rips her shirt open. And again, more rape.
We can't escape it.
You can't even escape it on Christmas Eve.
Come on.
Unbelievable. So Billy is just frozen standing there at first, though. But then this look, again, the facial expression, this look comes across his face and he yells naughty really loud and then grabs some Christmas lights hanging there and straight up strangles the douchebag guy with them.
And he pulls him up off the ground with the Christmas lights.
Right,
It's
like straight up
yeah.
Jason or Michael Myers just like lifting him. And they cut him too.
Mm-hmm.
That's how hard he held him up. But then Tammy is just like in the corner freaking out too and calls him crazy. And as she tries to run away, he stabs her with a box cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Again, up the torso.
Yeah.
That would never happen.
So I was watching a video essay kind of on this describing like why he killed that girl, because she was the victim in the situation. Why would he go and like kill her? So the whole like theory was that because when he saw two people having sex for the first time as a kid, the nun kind of didn't really explain what was going on. All he knows is that what they were doing was bad. And so he is not seeing that Tammy is a victim here of abuse. He's just seeing that two people are engaging in some kind of naughty activity. And so that's why he kills her as well, because he doesn't know what sex or consensual or non-consensual, like the difference between consensual and non-consensual sex. So,
well, he honestly probably doesn't even know that that's sex.
Yeah.
He just knows that it was supposedly bad.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to do it. Yeah. Mr. Sims, though, and the other lady that works there, I didn't write her name down either. She's older, though, than this Tammy girl.
Yeah.
He's pretty sure he hears something in the back, and he goes drunk wandering back there. But he doesn't see anything at first. So just as he goes to leave, Billy pops out and smashes his head in with a hammer. And this poor old lady... Oh, her name is Mrs. Randall. Here we go. I did write it down.
She's like the assistant manager, it seems.
Sure.
Yeah.
She sees... The lights go out. She gets freaked out. She walks towards the back of the stockroom and then sees Mr. Sims with the hammer in his head and runs out and tries to leave. But, of course, the doors are locked at the front. Which, wouldn't they be locked from the inside?
Yeah, so they're locked from the inside, but she doesn't have... Because it's a key that locks it from the inside. For some reason.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. But, fine. She doesn't have the key.
Yeah.
So she can't get out. She then sees a phone and does try to call for help, but Billy is there, and he just tries to axe her and straight misses her.
He cuts the telephone line.
Ah, okay, I did not see
Yeah.
that. I thought he just, missed her on purpose to scare her. But she does take off to try to hide. She does make it as far as an aisle, and then Billy starts singing "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," which made me laugh straight out loud. That he's walking around with this axe doing that.
It's creepy though. It definitely sells the creepy factor in the intensity.
It is creepy. He thinks that he sees her hat she was wearing, so he goes to smash on the hat and axe her with the axe. But she put it there so she can run away, and she does grab the axe initially to try to...
Someone who actually does something smart in a horror film. When you knock down the bad guy, you take their weapon. I was so happy to see that.
First time.
Yeah.
Right. First time. But just in time, Billy got a goddamn bow and arrow out of somewhere.
Yeah, this is a toy store. Why are there like a real bow and arrow in this toy store? What is this, like a Cabela's for kids?
I assume it was a toy one, but it goes through her, so, not cool. Because, she made the only good decision in this movie. And she wasn't even doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, neither was Mr. Sims, I guess, but...
They were drunk. They were intoxicated.
Well, okay.
They were giving in to temptation.
But again, does he know that?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
There's no way
he's
he
just
was
completely
exposed to alcohol in that
point.
orphanage.
Probably not. Well, there was wine. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
No one cares.
Anyway. No. 80s. No one cares. Goddamn bow and arrow, though, Mrs. Randall. She's dead now. Then Billy calmly goes and unlocks the doors and leaves the store. We then see the nun again, like we mentioned, that was trying to help him, Sister Margaret. She does arrive just in the nick of time for Billy to be gone, but does see Mrs. Randall there and, of course, screams her head off. Then we cut to some people caroling outside. Again, another weird Christmas song I had never heard of. And we see two people making out in a house. Again, naked boobs.
Again,
everywhere.
this is also just a random house, too. Like, these characters were
Right.
not set up earlier in the film or anything.
Nope. Super random. But apparently she is a babysitter because a little girl pops out and says she wants to wait up for Santa. And she's basically like, yo, no, can't do that. He won't come if you're not asleep. And then this dude says the best line of the movie by far. So she goes, look, if you don't go to bed, Santa won't come. And the dude straight whispers in her ear, he's not the only one.
I didn't hear that. That's funny, though.
Gross. But also, yes, whoever wrote that line. We then hear some jingle bells. Oh, we didn't mention on Billy's Santa suit, there are jingle bells on the cuffs.
Think of that as like
circling it.
the jingle and like I don't know, Halloween or the ambiance in Friday the 13th. It's the noise that you hear when you can tell that the killer is coming.
Right. Super terrifying.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's a
Jingle
clever
bells.
way to do it because you as the audience know like, oh, some shit's about to go down.
Yeah.
So.
True. But this is the only time we hear the first time we hear the jingle bells. Well, I guess you kind of hear it.
Because when he's like looking for like that manager lady at the store, you can hear him kind of jingling as he's walking through the store. So
That's true. Fair enough. So yes, the jingle bells are synonymous with Billy's coming, basically. So she thinks it's the cat, though, this babysitter, and her collar is jingling. So she puts her jean shorts on in the middle of winter. A,
yeah.
why are you wearing jean shorts? B, but no top.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Of course, no top.
I feel like that's the one thing that you would, because she still had underwear on.
Right.
But like, so
right.
why would you? Okay, so that part's covered. Now, wouldn't you want to cover the other part? Because it's going to be freezing outside. We're in the middle of Utah in December.
Why are you wearing jean shorts? Yeah. Even better question.
In general, not just like even if it were warm out, why are you wearing shorts?
Right. And no top.
Yeah.
So no top, jean shorts, middle of winter in Utah, no shoes. She opens the door, like straight up opens this door, and we are led to believe that there are carolers right across the street. So she's just titties out, opening the door. Neighborhood, doesn't care. At first there's no cat, so we're like, oh, this is where she's going to get it. But then all of a sudden the cat comes running in. But then Billy pops up, and she pushes the door shut, but he axes that door down.
In like two swings, too. Like the entire door is gone in two swings.
That was a good breakaway door.
Yeah.
Good job, props department of this movie. Because, it's completely annihilated. And the axe just misses her, of course. But then he keeps yelling punish the whole time. So, like, every time that we describe a murder scene, he is yelling punish.
Punish or naughty.
Or naughty. Right. She runs. He tries to axe her again, misses her. She goes to, like, dodging it around him. She's not doing a very good job of trying to flee at this point. It's just like, it's fine. But he finally picks her up and gets her over his shoulder. And then you see a deer head hanging on the wall, naturally.
I think he does, like, throw the axe at one point that lands next to her head. I can't remember if it's this girl or, like, the manager lady in the store. But I thought that was pretty solid. I was, like, really hoping that we were going to, while you had the axe, that we were going to get some, like, really sick, like, axe throw, like, axe to the face type thing. Unfortunately, we didn't. But we did at least get an axe throw, so.
There's only one murder scene that is the axe.
Yeah.
And it's towards the end. But it is this girl that he threw the axe at.
Yeah, okay.
You're correct.
Cool.
But instead of using said axe, he picks this girl up and just slowly slams her into the hanging deer head on the wall, which, by the way, would totally break off. Those are not anchored in like that.
Yeah, but it's kind of badass, though.
And again, the gore is pretty decent.
It's one of the like more creative kills that I've seen in a slasher film, for sure.
Oh, I've seen that repeated over and over again.
Really? I don't.
Cabin in the Woods does it.
Oh, really? This is like one of the first instances that I've actually seen it. Granted, I don't watch like a ton of horror films anymore, but
Touche. Yeah, I've definitely seen the whole on the antlers thing. I knew immediately that's how she was gonna die. As soon as they like pan over and show the deer head, I'm like, okay. But the dude in the basement is now playing pool on said pool table, which I thought was funny. Like, how much time has passed that you're like, you know what? Let's play a game of pool. Then maybe I'll go look for my girlfriend. So weird. And then I realized the basement door was closed because I'm like, how the fuck didn't he hear any of that?
Yeah.
He was right there. Like, when she goes up the stairs, the door is literally right in front of her. It's not a very big house.
You probably would have heard all that stomping around upstairs, too.
Right. And the screaming, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the basement door being closed means it's soundproof. I will hear no arguments otherwise. So he didn't hear anything. So he goes wandering upstairs, and he does see the door again because it's right there. And he starts to yell for the babysitter. Her name is Denise. I did write her name down. She's just hanging there behind him. And he, of course, eventually looks up around and sees her hanging on this deer and yells. But then Billy pops out, and this dude gets a fire poker and does hit him, and he falls down the basement stairs where he just came from. But as soon as he tries to call 911, another 80s thing, operator, get me 911. Just in the nick of time to get also killed, because he doesn't get through. So Billy initially tries to strangle him with the phone wire, but that doesn't work. So then, just so we're on the same page, Billy's a straight up serial killer now. He doesn't care who he's killing.
He's just going into random people's houses at this point.
Right. And at first I thought he did strangle the kid with the phone cord, and then we realize he doesn't because he tosses him out the window, and that kills him.
Got a big old piece of glass hanging out of his side. Like, that was pretty good, like, the makeup for that, too.
Oh, my God. The perfectly broken and positioned glass in this body. Yes, that was wonderful.
I don't know. I thought it was because, like, you would think that, like, when they throw him out the window, it was like, oh, it's the fall or something. But no, they actually had, like, the pieces of glasses that were stuck in him that I thought.
Yeah, this is that's actually the only one that I was like, this is stupid.
Really?
Because, so when you pan over to his body, there's a piece of glass starting from his forehead, basically cutting into his nose and like going off to one side. Mm-hmm. It looks like a literal piece of glass. Like there's a very, curved angle to it.
I couldn't see like broken. I don't have like my theater set up. I don't know, but it's like I couldn't see that detail. I just saw that there were pieces of glass sticking out of him. So.
Well, and then in his stomach or torso area, the piece of glass that's sticking out is fucking huge.
Yeah, it was
happen.
A little larger than it was. Like half the window was just in his torso.
Right. Half the window's here, half of it's in his face. So after this happens, this little girl again comes wandering back out, and she yells for Santa Claus. Totally ignoring the shit show going on in your living room right here, and your babysitter hanging from the wall. Because she can see that. There's no way she couldn't.
I'm under the impression that everybody's field of view is just like this in this movie. Because there are so many times where like all you'd have to do is like look like out of the corner of your eye, see someone hanging or like dead on the floor, and they just completely miss him until they have to make like a solid 45-degree rotation.
Sure. We'll definitely go with that throughout the rest of the movie because that's the only thing that makes logical sense. So Billy asks this little girl if she's been good or naughty. She says, I've been really good. And he says, are you sure? And she shakes her little head. So he pulls out the box cutter from before and just gives that to her as a present.
I was like, oh my God, are they going to do it? Are they actually going to kill a child in this movie? And
every time there is a kid, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, but no, he just gives her the bloody box cutter that he's had in his pocket.
Covered in blood.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, kid.
Right. He then just hulks back out that front door, kicking the rest of it to pieces. And then we hear the little girl calling for her babysitter, but we don't get a shot of her actually finding the babysitter, so I guess that's fine. Better than killing the kid, too.
Yeah.
Let's save her that. We then cut to 2 cops driving around, and they are looking for the Santa. So someone has called 911 at this point, but we don't know who.
I think it was
the police.
Because the nun found the bodies.
Oh, you're right. Could have been her.
Yeah, because she comes in shortly after Billy leaves the store. It's like 1 or 2 scenes after or something. She comes in and sees the bodies. So.
That's true. It probably was her. Touché. But as the cops are driving around looking for said Santa, murderous Santa, they then see a guy climbing into a window of a house. So they rush in. Of course, the fucking front door is unlocked because 80s. And they immediately run upstairs. And
no warrant in hand.
Nothing at all. No. Just don't move, lady. And she's like, what the fuck is this? They run upstairs. And this guy is climbing this window. And luckily, it's just her dad. Because immediately the girl recognizes him. So
I like how the dad, it's just random dad went through the effort to like climb up a ladder into his daughter's bedroom just to like surprise her as Santa Claus when she immediately recognizes him as her dad and not for a split second is convinced that this is Santa Claus.
No.
It's like this dad went through all this effort for no reason.
Yeah, ladder outside the window, the whole 9 yards. Dressed up, obviously. But funny side note, I'm mentioning dads. I think I was maybe this girl's age, 6 or 7, and I started to realize that on our presents, my dad has very distinctive cursive handwriting, and he only writes in cursive, and you can't replicate it. Like, if I was going to forge a note for school, I would replicate my mom's because it was so much easier than my dad's. It was very distinct handwriting. So, yeah, 6 or 7, I start to realize that the From Santa tags on our presents were in my dad's handwriting. And I was like, wait a minute. And I'm pretty sure I asked at that moment, unwrapping presents, isn't this dad's handwriting?
It's like, oh no, Santa and Dad, were in the same class. They learned how to write the same way.
My mom said something along those lines because my sisters were younger and still, obviously, the Santa thing had to stay around for at least a couple more years. So she did pull me to the side later and was like, obviously, it's your dad's. But don't say anything to your sisters.
There was never really any kind of question that me or my brothers had about Santa growing up. We kind of just figured it out. As we were growing up, watching growing up with the internet and TV. As you get older, you see stuff referencing that Santa Claus isn't real. So it's for a while. I think it was one day my mom was just like, so you guys know the whole Santa thing, right? And we were like, yeah, we know. And they were like, and she was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to keep up the act anymore.
I would imagine it is pretty, time consuming for parents for sure.
I got to eat all those cookies that they leave out.
And the carrots and drink the milk. And yeah.
Did you guys
Good on you, parents.
Did you leave carrots for Santa or for the reindeer?
For the reindeer.
We always just left cookies. I don't think we ever did the carrots.
Yeah, we did carrots.
That's considerate.
Yeah. My younger sister was really into Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that claymation one, which I think those are fucking creepy, but she loved it. So,
it can be a little difficult to go back and watch old claymation.
It's just creepy.
Yeah.
But she really liked the Rudolph story, so she always was leave the carrots. So we did. So anyway, back to this. After we discovered that's not Billy sneaking into this child's room, kind of, thank God, obviously, we then see Billy hiding from the cop car coming down the road. He's in the ditch again, so kind of reminiscing when he was a child, same premise. We then see 2 kids about to go sledding, in the middle of the night in Utah, as you do.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve. You're not at home with your parents or anything.
Which also, that little girl with the house and before, why are her parents not home with her on Christmas Eve? Why is it a babysitter and her boyfriend?
Right. Shitty.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Maybe they left when she was asleep to do my parents would go to neighbors' houses for parties.
Okay.
When we were asleep.
That makes sense.
But I mean, they weren't very far.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure my mom used a baby monitor till we were 12 if they went to like a neighbor's house
Now
just
it's
to see.
Live 360 or Find My iPhone that parents use to track their kids.
Right. So the one kid does hear the jingling. This time it's very apparent, the jingling, for sure. And the other kid kind of makes fun of him. But then 2 other kids pop out from nowhere, and they're like the bullies. So they kind of bully these 2 kids and take their sleds. And so the one bully takes off down the hill. And
I want to talk about one line early in this scene that was one of my favorites, where like before the bullies come in, the 2 like good kids are talking. One hears something in the distance, and the other friend goes, "Are you having a religious experience, or did you just piss yourself?" I thought that line was pretty good.
That was funny for sure. I do remember laughing at that. And he does try to tell the one bully off, that same kid. So, I mean, good for you.
Until he gets his ass handed to him.
Right, they get beat up. But this ultimately saves their life.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. So, the one bully takes off down the hill. And it looks like a pretty decent hill. Like, they're going a decent distance, it seemed like anyway. He then yells up at the other kid to go. The other kid starts taking off, and Billy pops out of nowhere and straight decapitates him with that axe. This is the axe kill.
Yeah. It was
good.
I was like, when he did that, I was like, oh, please, I want to see the body roll down on the sled without the head, and the head follow behind. And that's exactly what happened. I was like, yes, it's so good.
So brilliant. Also, again, the gore. Very, granted, it's outside at night, but you can see this body, the way they positioned it, because they clearly put like a mannequin or a dummy on the sled, fake blood where the head would be, blah, blah, blah.
And they don't really show the face of the fake head or anything, so that way it's...
No.
Yeah, so that way it's easier to not get... You don't have to worry about being pulled out of the immersion, because you can clearly tell that it's a dummy's face or anything like that.
Right. Again, good choice for sure. And again, this body has to come down. I don't know how far they really pushed it for the effect.
Yeah.
Maybe they only pushed it like 2 feet. But it slides down this hill, so, it looked good.
Yeah.
It looked good. And yeah, they did skip the fake face shot, so... Because the head immediately comes rolling down after it. And that other kid loses his shit, so... And this kid must have been A+ student in his drama class, because his screams are so real sounding.
Yeah.
He was giving it his all, for sure. So we cut to the next day, and Sister Margaret is in the police station waiting to hear something. I think she slept there, just waiting, because she's on like a bench, and she wakes up. She asks a police detective if there's any news, and he tells her, unfortunately, there's been 3 more murders. We don't see those. Bummer.
Well, I think the 3 murders are the girl and the boyfriend from the one house, and then the one decapitated kid. Because it's dark during those scenes, and now it's clearly Christmas morning. So right. I think those are the 3 murders.
That makes sense. She kind of explains, though, that he's like this because what he went through and this undealt trauma. And it's like, yes, lady, making so much sense. The detective then says, well, hopefully you can kind of guess what his next move might be, because we'd really like to stop these bodies from, piling up. And then you can see like a light bulb go on above her head. And we cut to the orphanage. Of course, he's going to go back there, because that awful Mother Superior is still alive. And this little girl is in probably their office, and that probably is the only phone in the orphanage, but she leaves it off the hook. So, of course, when the cops try to call, it's busy. So the detective and Sister Margaret take off for the orphanage. He also radios all of the officers to get there as well. We cut to some kids playing outside the orphanage, and initially... a Santa walking up in a Santa suit. One of the cops that was I'm assuming closest to the orphanage drives up and sees the Santa and immediately shoots him. Doesn't ask him to turn around. Doesn't say anything.
Well, I think he says like,
I think.
Yeah. And then shoots him in the back. Like
a
cowardice pig.
Right. It's terrible. And of course, it's right in front of all these children.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's traumatizing, too. Seeing someone shot in a Santa costume in front of you.
It's like being on Oprah. Check under your seats, and you're traumatized, and you're traumatized, and you're traumatized.
Exactly. So we cut back to the sister and the detective driving to the orphanage still, and we hear on the radio that the Santa was shot, but balls, it wasn't fucking Billy.
Oof.
It was goddamn Father O'Brien, who is their Santa every year, and he didn't stop because he was deaf. You can't make this stuff up.
It's a little on the nose there.
Too much. I'm watching this. My husband and I look over, and we both just were like, deaf?
I think they were just like, they like shot the scene and they're like, wait, how do we like properly explain this? They're like on the day of shooting. It's like, all right, we're going to do some quick script changes here real quick just so that this shit will make sense.
But it doesn't make sense. Why would you be deaf?
Why would you be deaf?
Why would you put that in there? Like, just make it so the guy is, it's fine. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
It's just a guy. You don't have to make him deaf.
I don't know. Well, that's why you didn't hear him. That's why you didn't hear the cop when he was yelling out. Because he's deaf.
Yeah. It's sad. It's a kind of a sad thing to put in there.
Mm.
But we then see Mother Superior, who is now in a wheelchair. And I made a note, that'll be a fun kill later. But she's pissed also at the cop because he shot the wrong person, because she knows now it was the priest obviously coming.
Mm-hmm.
The cop says, well, I'm going to go back outside and walk the grounds. More cops are showing up, so just keep the doors locked and stay inside. And then they finally start singing Christmas songs that I actually know. And I mentioned public domain here again, but...
I love how it's just like, yeah, kids, we know that you just watched a man brutally murdered in front of you by a cop, but we're going to sing some Christmas songs to distract you.
Yep, just go inside. It's fine. Everyone go inside. So we see the cop checking doors around the building, and then he sees like a small little shack off to the side of the building, I believe, and the door is swinging open, so of course we got to check it out. But it is dark as fuck in there, and it looks empty. He walks down the stairs, surveys this small building. I'm not even sure what this building is. It looked like it had water tanks and like
it's like a
random shit in
weird
there.
basement cellar type thing.
I guess.
And this cop is he's a little too much. He's a little extra. Because, like, anytime you see him turn a corner, he's, like, you know, back against the wall. Like gun just, like this. Not even, like, properly handling it.
No. Again, A+ in your drama acting class that you were taking. But it's not great here.
Yeah.
So, nothing's in this little basement shack thing, whatever you want to call it. So, he walks back up the stairs, and Billy pops up, and the second axe kill of the movie.
Woo. Not as satisfying, though.
No, not as fun as a head rolling down a hill with the body on the sled.
Yeah.
No.
This guy just
okay.
This guy just takes it to the stomachs and stumbles down some steps.
Yeah. It was okay.
Yeah.
So then we see Billy with the bloody axe. Again, the blood dripping from the axe. Pretty good looking,
Yeah.
I must say. And he axes the snowman. So
I didn't see that.
Fine, I guess. So then a little boy inside sees Billy coming up to the door. So he, of course, fucking opens it.
It's
Goddamn
Santa.
kid. Right. But Mother Superior is telling him to stop, but she's in a wheelchair. She can't do much.
Yeah.
Or stop this kid. So she does try to get the kids away from him because a couple's try to start walking towards him and starts yelling at him that this isn't Santa. And he keeps saying naughty, like repeatedly at this point. Then he's gonna axe Mother Superior for sure, but just in the nick of time gets shot down by the cop and Sister Margaret arriving.
The detective, not the cop that just got
Yes,
murdered.
I'm sorry. The detective, yes. So Sister Margaret walks over to him and kind of watches him die, and the axe has fallen kind of behind him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns to the kids. He turns
This
to the
is
kids
awful.
and says, "You're safe now because Santa is gone." And he dies. And that's the end of Billy. And all of these hella traumatized children at this point are just standing there with kind of their mouths open, some of them, which I thought was brilliant too. And then the axe has fallen at this boy, Andrew, who opened the door initially to let the Santa in.
No, I think it's a different kid. I think this is Richie or Ricky or something.
I thought it was Andrew. I thought it was the same kid that opened the door.
I think it's a different kid because this kid that we see where the axe is at his feet and we pan up, that's Billy's little brother.
No, his little brother would be older by now.
No.
Because if Billy's an adult.
I think it is.
You mean... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm pretty sure this is Billy's little brother.
No, it can't be.
I'm pretty sure. It's got to be.
That kid only looks like 6 or 7. If Billy's 18, and let's just say he was 6, so when the baby was a baby, they're only 6 years apart.
Well, because I know that the sequel follows it follows Billy's brother as he becomes the murderer.
Okay, well,
so
let's assume that's who it is then.
It's
right.
it's got to be his little brother because he said it pans up to his face and he goes naughty.
Right.
And then that's,
dun, dun, dun.
That's the movie.
That's the movie. So this was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Of a movie. I'm kind of glad it wasn't much longer than it was, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a solid, well-paced hour 22, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But
did you have any other things that you found?
Not really. I kind of mentioned them all through the we talked about the criticism, which we'll get into a little bit more here in a second, but
yeah, I'll talk about the release and stuff too.
Yeah. In terms of, there's some great interviews online with the cast, primarily the lead, Robert Brian Wilson, that mostly just kind of talk about, how he was new going into this. And of course they had no idea that this would be the cult classic phenomenon that it would be.
Literally. It's one of I didn't realize how much of a cult classic this movie really is.
Right. Yeah.
Until I started doing all the research on it. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. But
for sure. Good pick.
Yeah.
Good viewer pick.
Good job, Nick.
Yeah. So I have some fun facts. So this film was originally titled Sleigh Ride.
Oh, really?
Which actually would have been cool too, I think. I don't hate it.
Yeah. I like Silent Night, Deadly Night. I think they should have just called it Silent Night. But initially.
Yeah. I don't hate Sleigh Ride either, though.
Yeah.
But the film got new distribution before it was released, and the title was changed then. So, this movie, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and A Nightmare on Elm Street are two of 1984's literally most popular horror movies, and they were released on the exact same day.
This movie actually was doing better while it was still
yes
in theaters, though, which is really interesting.
It was doing better. Yeah. Even though the theatrical release was short-lived, this did do better initially and outperformed A Nightmare on Elm Street. Television advertisements depicting the film's killer as Santa, obviously, were reportedly making children very scared of Santa, so parents tried to boycott the movie, picketing theaters.
It didn't help that they had these advertisements play during intermissions and commercial breaks for family-friendly TV shows and programs.
No.
Probably not the greatest.
Yeah, maybe after 9 air these kind of trailers for sure. But ultimately their efforts were successful, and it was yanked from the theaters after only 10 days.
Yikes.
10 days. That sucks. So speaking of the gore and how much I loved it, most of the death and gore scenes were not shot or directed or completed by the filmmaker and director himself because it made him uncomfortable. The film's editor, Michael Spence, is uncredited as the co-director, but he did all the graphic scenes in this movie.
Oh, wow.
And great job. You did a wonderful job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with parents not liking this movie, a lot of actors didn't like this movie either and were pretty vocal about it. I'm sure you saw this while you were looking up the sequels, but Mickey Rooney actually wrote a letter of protest against the movie. You can find the letter online still, apparently. But he does end up starring in one of the sequels, the 5th one.
That's funny.
So, Yeah.
Oh, how the turntables. But yeah.
Keep turning.
Yeah.
Speaking of the sequels, like we mentioned, there are 5 in total, and there's going to be a reboot next year.
I did see that.
supposedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of down for that.
I mean, I'll probably watch it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they technically kind of already made a reboot / spiritual successor a few years ago, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
More horror reboots. That's definitely what we need.
Right. Eye roll.
Yeah.
The scene where the police are looking for Billy and the maniac dressed as Santa is what they say, and see the man going into his daughter's room that we mentioned. That actor actually stars in Michael Myers 3 Halloween. Oh, I'm sorry. He is Michael Myers in Halloween
3?
5.
Oh.
Revenge of Michael Myers. Yes.
Huh.
That's Don Shanks. He eventually goes on to play Michael Myers.
Nice.
Which is funny. I thought, anyway. So we talked about the score a lot. This movie features original songs from musician Morgan Ames. Notably, a couple, The Warm Side of Christmas, when they're driving in the car, Santa's Watching is his own rendition. So he recorded this entire Christmas album strictly for this movie, and it was supposed to be released in conjunction with the film, but since it did so poorly in the box office and all the controversy surrounding it, he never released this album. That's why you've never heard these fucking songs before.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was actually released as part of a film's 2-disc set for a cult 35-year anniversary in 2014.
That would make
Question
sense.
mark? Yeah.
Wait,
So
25
it's not
year
an
anniversary?
issue. Yeah, sorry. I might have
Might-
wrote that down wrong, but
Probably a 30th.
however long that
yeah.
is. Yeah. 30th maybe?
It'd be the
30 years?
30th because if it came out in 84, released in 2014, that'd be 30 years. So
Yay, math.
yeah.
So it's not an issue of public domain. It's just, yeah, this, was made special for the movie. So again, despite that it only ran in theaters for 10 days before getting pulled from North American theaters. And it actually wasn't even released overseas until 2009, I read.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
And I think it like in terms of like distribution on VHS, like it bounced around from a different distribution companies for a while in the mid to late 80s and like early 90s as well. So it was something that even like, because a lot of cult classics become cult classics because of their success from in home video. Like this one struggled even with that. So
Agreed. But for only the 10 days in the theater, it did pull in $2.5 million in the 80s.
what was the budget for it?
I don't know,
Get
but that's
that.
a lot of fucking money
Yeah.
in 10 days.
Yeah.
And yeah, it had all those sequels, so they did it well, apparently. So again, just mentioning over the years, this has become such a cult classic. I was completely shocked by all the information I was finding online about this movie and how beloved it is for people who love slashers. So.
And I heard that
Well done.
part 2 was originally just going to be like a re-edit of the original film, and then they had decided to actually like shoot some more stuff, and then the second one had an even like much lower budget type thing where the guy who plays the protagonist in the second one had like no experience, like didn't really know anything about the first film going into it, and so it was one of those things. And it was like the second one, like he's one of the main guys, like it was like a week-long shoot roughly for a majority of the stuff that he was in, and so it became one of those projects where, and this is the same kind of a little bit for Robert Wilson, who played Billy in the first one. They didn't really, it wasn't until like closer to the 30th anniversary that they had realized how big of a cult following that this franchise had. And so it wasn't until like they were getting phone calls from producers for like the 30th anniversary screenings and stuff that they were like, oh, holy shit, this project that I worked on 30 years ago that was just kind of like a side gig I was doing is like huge now.
I'm trying to find when the sequels were released.
I think part 2 was 87.
Okay, so it wasn't too much out from the original.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, it spawned all those sequels, so even if they didn't have a good budget, even if this movie made money, it is hard to wrap your mind around a person who murders people in a Santa costume.
Yeah.
Just saying.
A very simple yet extremely controversial concept.
Plot. Yeah, for sure. All right.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much going to do it for this episode of the Cult Cinema Podcast. Of course, if you have any recommendations on what films we should cover, make sure to leave it in the comments below. If you're on YouTube, you can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts or shoot us a DM or a comment on the Instagram. You'll find links to all of that good stuff in the description below. What do we got going on for the next? Oh, that's Die Hard. We're doing Die Hard for the next one.
Die Hard is next time.
Not exactly a cult similar, cult classic in terms of what we've reviewed in terms of cult classic before, but it's Christmas.
I think it qualifies because of the controversial opinions. I don't think it's controversial.
Yeah, no.
Of it being a Christmas movie.
Yeah, no, that's just a fact.
It is a fact.
And if you think otherwise,
so we're very excited
you're
for
wrong.
it.
But yeah, so stay tuned for that episode and for much more to come. Do we have anything left on our list, or are we mostly going off of recommendations right now?
So, no, I just did the recommendations for Christmas stuff because
cool.
there's so many Christmas movies we could have done out there.
Mm-hmm.
So next month is straight comedy. So we're only going to do something funny.
Finally.
And then February is going to be Ashley and Gage pick a movie that they think will become a cult classic.
Yes.
Long title,
yeah.
but it's going to be newer films.
That we think will be considered cult classics.
Yep,
That
down the road.
Whoever takes over this show after we're done with it can review and pick up on their 2 cents. But
yeah, and then we still have the list. I just we just kind of skewed from it for Christmas, so I was like, you know what, we can do better.
Gotcha. Yeah,
for January
sure.
and February. So.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for tuning into this episode. We will catch you in the next one.